Ah, come sit here, child. Yes, right by the lantern. The light's softer here. The wind's picking up, and the river's not sleeping tonight. You hear that? That hum? Not the trees. Not the boat ropes creaking. It's the Padma. She's remembering. No, don't laugh. You think rivers forget? They remember everything. The fish we took. The lies we told. The people we never found. Every splash has an echo, and sometimes it comes back not as sound, but as something else. You're older now, not a baby anymore. That means I can finally tell you the truth about this place. Our home, Koyagat. The village sits quiet now, 3 rows of tin-roof houses, the mosque with the leaning minar, and the tea stall that still sells biscuits older than I am. But when I was your age, Koyagat was a different beast. Busier, yes. Louder. And scared. Always just a little scared. Why? Because of the river. Oh yes. It gave us everything. Fish, travel, stories, even weddings. But the river also took, not just things, people. Whole families vanished. And not during storms, no. Not in flood or famine. They disappeared on calm nights. Full moon. Still waters. Like tonight. Now listen carefully. This isn't a ghost story like you read on those little phone screens. This happened. I was there. I saw it. And one day you may too. It begins with the whispers. You know that stretch of the river, just beyond the old jetty, where the banyan tree leans too far out over the water, like it's listening to secrets. That's the place. Locals called it Butter Bog, the Ghost's Bend. The elders warned us never to fish there, never to row through it, not even to throw our nets nearby. We were told the place was cursed, where the river turned into something else, something with eyes, something with teeth. They said it was haunted by a ghost that ate raw fish. Only fish, Grandpa. That's what we all asked. And the elders would pause, look at the river like it might overhear, and say, only fish, if you're lucky. We laughed, of course. Thought it was a bedtime tale to scare children into staying ashore. But then it happened. A boy named Rafik, smart mouth, big dreams, heart too big for his boat. He wanted to prove there was no ghost. So one night, he rowed alone to Butter Bog, told everyone he'd come back with the biggest hillsaw we'd ever seen. We never saw Rafik again. Not his body. Not a bone. Only his boat returned, floating silently into shore at dawn. Torn net, half-broken oar, and blood smeared on the side planks. Not a lot, just enough to make your chest tighten. That was the last time the village was truly loud. After that, we whispered more. We locked our doors earlier, and we never fished on full moons. Especially not near the bend. But you see, child, there's a reason I'm telling you this now. Because I didn't always believe it either. No, your grandpa was young once. Foolish, brave in the way only boys can be. And I made the same mistake Rafik did. Only I came back. Changed. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's go back. Back to when the river still trusted me, and I still thought I understood it. It started with the fish. They began disappearing. Not dying. Not floating. Just vanishing. We'd set our nets in the evening, row gently, hum an old tune to pass time, and when we'd pull them back, empty. No tears in the rope. No damage. Just gone. We thought it was poachers at first. Then we blamed crocodiles. Then we saw the eyes. That's when everything changed. But that's for another night. Tonight, I just want you to know this. The Padma watches, and it remembers those who mock her. The ghost isn't just a story, child. He's hungry, and some nights, if the moon is right, you'll hear him chewing. You've heard me speak of Buddha Bog, the ghost's bend, but you don't know it. Not the way we knew it. Come closer, and I'll paint the picture in your mind. There's a long stretch of the Padma where the banks rise a little higher than usual. Clay cliffs, soft enough to crumble in your hand, but tall enough to hide whatever crouches behind them. The trees are different there. Their roots grow out instead of down. Their branches twist like arms caught mid-prayer. And right at the river's edge, hanging over the water like a question, is the old banyan tree. No one planted it. No one remembers it growing. It was just always there. It leans so far over, its roots are exposed like bones. The villagers say its trunk is hollow. Some say it speaks. Not loud, just little murmurs, like it's whispering to the water. That's why the fish go missing there. That's why boats that drift too close never return. The place isn't evil, exactly. No, the river doesn't hate us, but it's hungry, and there are things in its depths that were never meant to be disturbed. Now you might ask, Grandpa, why didn't you just avoid it? We tried. We did. For years, everyone stayed away. But the river has her tricks. You see, the currents near the bend change without warning. One night you're rowing toward Chandapur, and the next you're circling back to that cursed tree, even if you never meant to. Nets drift into the wrong waters. Anchors loosen on their own. The river pulls. That's what happened the night we lost Jamal Chacha. You remember his name, don't you? He used to sell you jaggery candy during Eid. Always wore that brown lungi and sang old folk songs no one else remembered. Well, he was fishing near the safe part, far from the bend, when a sudden fog rolled in. Thick, white, unnatural. Covered the entire river in minutes. Witnesses on the shore said they heard a splash. Then silence. Then crunching. By the time the fog lifted, Jamal's boat was still there. Empty. Not even a water jug left. Just a fish scale stuck between two wooden planks. Still wet. And his psalm. Someone swore they heard it echoing across the water, sung in reverse. That was the second time the village shut down. The elders gathered. Prayers were recited. Rice was thrown into the river as an offering. Some suggested abandoning fishing altogether, moving inland. But the land doesn't feed like the river does. So we stayed. And we feared. Now, let me tell you what the banyan looks like under the moonlight. It turns silver. The leaves don't sway with the wind. They move on their own. And the hanging roots, the ones that almost touch the water, they drip, constantly, even on dry nights, like the tree is sweating, or bleeding. And if you listen, really listen, you can hear it. Not the tree, not the river, something under it, breathing, deep, slow, wet. I once dared to row past it just before dusk. Just once. Curiosity burns harder than fire, you know. The tree turned its leaves toward me. I swear it did. Like it noticed. That's when I heard the chewing for the first time. Soft, wet, rhythmic, like someone tearing into raw fish, bones cracking, scales scraping against teeth. But no one was there. No birds. No frogs. Not even insects. Just that sound. And the water smiled. Yes, you heard me. The ripple pattern. Right where the tree's shadow fell. It curved upward. Like lips. That was enough for me. I rowed back faster than I ever had in my life. I didn't tell anyone. Who would believe me? But later that night, I found a fish on my doorstep, still alive, its eyes wide, its belly half-eaten, as if it had escaped the ghost's jaw, just long enough to die in front of me. I buried it by the river the next morning. Didn't eat fish for a week after that. The banyan never spoke to me again, but I never went near it either. And now I'm telling you, because it's still there, still waiting, still watching. If ever you find yourself near the bend, and I pray you don't, you'll feel it. That heaviness in your chest, that itch in your ear, that whisper behind your back. Don't turn around. Don't throw your net. And whatever you do, don't listen, because once you hear the chewing, it means you've been seen, and the river never forgets a face. Now you've been patient. You've heard the warnings, the whispers, the tales meant to scare off children and keep grown men respectful. But this chapter, this one isn't about warning. This is about what happens when you don't listen. His name was Rafiq Malla, tall boy, not from our family, but his father and I shared nets once. Big laugh, bigger dreams. Thought the village was too small for him. Thought the river was just water. He was 17 that year. Brave or foolish, enough to challenge the stories. It all started after Jamal Chacha's disappearance. The village was quiet, too quiet. Boats stayed docked. Prayers were whispered at every meal. Some of the women started tying black threads around their children's ankles. Protection, they said, from river eyes. But Rafiq, he didn't believe in ghosts. Old men's tales, he shouted, one evening at the tea stall, a steaming glass in his hand and a smirk on his lips. You people are scared of fish farts and wind in the leaves. I'll show you there's no such thing as a ghost bend. He said he'd go there that very night. Fish near the banyan. Come back with a net full and a story. Everyone tried to stop him. His father, his older brother, even the imam. But you can't reason with someone who thinks fear is weakness. So that night, under a waxing moon, with his net slung over his shoulder and a borrowed lantern, Rafiq set off for the bend. He rowed slow and smooth, past the edge of the usual fishing waters, toward the crooked banyan. He even waved once, cocky and full of pride, as if to say, "Look, I'm still alive." That was the last time anyone saw him. The next morning, his boat returned, alone. No blood this time, no claw marks or broken planks, just the net, empty and wet, and one fish, still alive, but its belly was torn open, like something had bitten through it mid-swim and let it go. The villagers gathered in silence. No one spoke, not even the dogs barked. His mother wailed. His father collapsed. But no one dared to go back for the body, not to that place. And then the dream started, not just for his family, for all of us. Strange dreams, dreams soaked in river mist and shadows. Some saw him standing knee-deep in water, waving. Others saw him sitting inside the hollow trunk of the banyan, whispering names we recognized. Names of people still living. I had one too. In mine, Rafiq was in a boat, but it wasn't floating. It was sinking, slowly, while he smiled and held a net full of redfish. And behind him something moved, something with long arms, a face without features, but eyes glowing greenish-white. When I woke, my palms were wet, not sweat. River water. I didn't speak of it, but I stopped going near the bend, even by accident. Some nights, we still heard strange things from that side of the river. Splashing, sometimes laughter, like someone fishing, and chewing. Always that chewing. Wet, sharp, steady. A month passed, then two, and then one morning, after a monsoon storm, Rafiq's father found something lodged between two stones by the water. A single sandal, worn down, mud-caked, but inside it, a small fish scale, pressed flat, and black, not silver, not like any fish we'd ever caught. After that, no one ever spoke Rafiq's name near the water. His mother placed a diya near the river every full moon, hoping to guide him home. But I think she knew, deep down, he wasn't lost. He'd been taken, not just by a ghost, but by the river itself. You see, child, the Padma doesn't forgive arrogance. And ghosts, they don't just haunt. Sometimes they recruit. So, you want to know what happened to me? I figured you'd ask. Every time I tell this story, people lean in when I mention Rafiq. They shiver when I speak of Jamal. But they always ask the same question in the end. Grandpa, if it's real, how did you survive? That's the part that haunts me most. Because I didn't escape. Not really. Not all of me. It was the monsoon of '67. The river had risen high, swelling with pride and silt. Boats creaked on their moorings. We just lost another net near the southern dock. Clean tear. Too clean. Not like driftwood or current. Something sharp. Deliberate. That night, I sat at the tea stall, watching the rain bounce off the tin roof like little ghost fingers. The stories were swirling in the air again. Someone claimed to see a lantern bobbing near the banyan. Another swore he heard Rafiq singing. And me, I couldn't stop thinking about the chewing. That slow, wet, steady chewing from my dream. So I did what only the stupid and the young ever do. I said, tonight I find the truth. No one could stop me. I told no one except my best friend, Bashir. Made him swear to keep quiet. I took the smallest boat we had, a single oar, no sail, no company. Just a net, a storm lantern, and a heart too proud for its chest. The current was gentle that night, oddly warm. The kind of warmth that makes you feel watched. Like a hand on your back, just below the surface. I rowed past the usual fishing spots, past the jetty, past the soft-spoken trees, until I saw it, the banyan, silver in the moonlight, still, too still. Even the rain didn't touch it. I drifted closer, silent, listening. The river around me didn't gurgle or slap the boat like usual. It breathed. Yes, breathed. The water rose and fell, slow and steady, like lungs beneath a blanket. That's when I dropped the net. Not into the water, into something else. It didn't feel like a net drop. No pull, no ripple. Just resistance, like casting into jelly or thick fog. Then came the sound. Crunch, slurp, gnash. So close I could feel the droplets on my face. But nothing moved. The lantern flickered. Once. Twice. Then darkness. Pitch black. I lit a match. It sputtered. Then went out with a hiss before I even lifted it. And then the eyes. Two of them. Floating just above the water's edge. Not round like a fish. Not glowing bright. They glimmered, like wet stones in moonlight. They blinked. And I swear to you on everything I love, they were looking through me. Not at me. Not like a man. Like a fisherman eyes his catch. That's when the water rose. Not from rain, from beneath. A long shape broke the surface behind the boat. Smooth, pale, lined with bones that clicked softly as it moved. I turned too late. The boat tilted. Something brushed my foot. Cold, sticky. Fingers. I kicked, pushed backward, grabbed the oar, and paddled like the river was on fire. But the chewing it followed. Not in the water. In my ears. Inside me. Like something had entered, not my body, but my mind, and whispered, "Stay." I made it to shore. Collapsed in the mud, soaked, shivering. They found me at dawn, curled beside the banyan's twin shadow. No one spoke, not even Bashir. He just helped me home and sat in silence. For days, I couldn't speak. My eyes kept drifting to shadows. I flinched at the sound of fish frying in oil, that chewing noise everywhere. And then, one morning, I found a fish outside my door. Not caught, not bought, delivered. It was whole, except for the head. The bite was too clean, like a message. From then on, I stopped fishing, let the river be. But I dreamed still, of eyes, of chewing, of something deep beneath the Padma, with my name in its mouth. And here I am, still alive, but part of me, still out there, still drifting, still listening. There's something you come to understand, child, once you've seen the river blink at you. The Padma isn't just water and silt. It has a face. And beneath that face, eyes. Not just two, not just human, but many. You think I'm being poetic? No, I mean that literally. Let me explain. After that night on the water, after I came back broken and silent, I stopped fishing. For months, I couldn't even look at the river without feeling like it would reach up and pull me in by the lungs. But the river never forgot me. It sent reminders, little ones. Every full moon, I'd wake with my bedsheet damp, not wet like sweat, but river wet, muddy at the corners. The scent of algae and old fish clung to my skin. Sometimes I'd find scales on the floor, not from any fish we catch in these parts, black and oval and warm to the touch, as if they'd just been peeled off something still alive. And then the dream started again. Only now they weren't dreams. They were memories, ones that didn't belong to me. I'd see through its eyes. Yes, the ghost. The thing in the bend. I don't know if it was once a man, or if it was born in the silt when the world was still soft. But it remembers. It remembers the boats, the nets, the feeling of scales sliding down a throat. I saw it once, its true form, not in waking life, but in the space between sleep and breath. It rose from the bottom of the river like a curtain of smoke, shifting shape with the current. Sometimes it had arms, sometimes just fins. Its face was never whole, but the eyes, those were always the same. Cold, patient, curious, not angry, just hungry. And they watched, not just me, all of us. One night, a boy named Habib went down to the river to wash after evening prayer. He never came back. His slippers were found at the edge of the water, and the fish in our market, gone the next morning, every last one, as if the river had claimed them as payment. The imam said nothing during that Friday sermon. He just stared out at the water and whispered something under his breath. Later, his daughter said he kept muttering the same word in his sleep. Eyes beneath, watching, counting. Because that's what they do. They count. Every footstep near the shore. Every net tossed. Every splash made after sundown. And when the count is full, they come closer, not always to take, sometimes just to look. There's a spot near the Ghost's Bend where the current spins strangely, where fish won't swim and birds won't land. We call it the circle. If you toss a stone into it, it vanishes mid-air, gone, like it never existed. But if you crouch low, just above the water, and wait, you'll see them. Not clearly, but enough. Eyes, dozens, some too large, some too small, all blinking slowly, not underwater, but inside it, staring upward, waiting. I once saw a boy dare another to put his hand in the circle. He laughed, said it was just superstition. He knelt, stretched his arm forward. The moment his skin broke the surface, he screamed. Didn't say why, didn't describe pain, just screamed, pulled back. No wound, no scar, but his hand, it shook for days. He wouldn't speak. He just kept whispering. They saw me. They know me now. After that, he stopped sleeping, moved to Dhaka, married early, never came back. But I know what he saw, because they saw me, too. They know my name. And child, when the river knows your name, it never forgets. You've listened this far, child, and you haven't run. That tells me you're brave, or maybe too curious for your own good. But if you want the full story, you need to hear about the time the entire village believed. Yes, there was a time when we all stopped pretending it was just bad luck, when even the boldest men stopped fishing at night, when we gave the thing in the water a name. We called it Makeo Abut, the clay eater, not because it ate mud, but because of how it left people behind hollow, like clay jars left too long in the kiln, dried out, empty. Let me explain. It started slow, after the disappearances. First, the fish changed. They came up pale, eyes missing, biting their own tails. Then, the cattle wouldn't go near the riverbanks. The goats would stop, stiff, and scream at nothing, looking right at the water. Then came the smell. Not always. Just after sundown, a stench like wet rope and rotting bamboo. You know the kind, but thicker, heavier. You'd wake up gagging, with no fire lit, and all your windows closed. We thought something had died in the water, but the river was calm, too calm. Even the frogs had stopped croaking. The old women began leaving small offerings at the edge, handfuls of rice, a slice of raw fish, a few flowers from the shrine tree. At first, we thought it was nonsense. But then, one night, someone forgot. Young bride, moved to the village from Kushtia. She didn't know the rules yet. Her husband was away on a delivery trip. She washed clothes at dusk, sang while doing it. She never finished the song. The next morning, they found a bundle of wet fabric still on the stone, but no sign of her. Just a trail of damp clay footprints, leading to the water, and ending in it. No splash, no struggle, just gone. Her mother-in-law wailed the entire market into silence that day. The imam called a meeting. The villagers gathered beneath the tamarind tree. Even the old men, the ones who never came out anymore, stood up and listened, and we made a decision. For the first time, in living memory, we stopped fishing altogether. No nets, no boats. Nothing touched the Padma after dark, and for a while it helped. The air cleared. The frogs returned. We thought we'd beaten it, until the statue cracked. Yes, the old one. You've seen it. Half buried now in the temple courtyard, broken down by time. But it wasn't always like that. It used to stand tall, a stone figure of the river goddess, hands cupped, eyes closed, with fish carved along her base. That statue had stood there for centuries, they said. One morning, it split clean down the middle. No storm, no rain, just a single, jagged line across her chest. And at her feet, a fish head, fresh, bleeding, as if placed there. The priest fainted on the spot. The villagers began whispering louder, said the ghost was angry, that it didn't want offerings. It wanted witnesses. It wanted to be remembered. We brought in a Baba from Faridpur, old man, long beard, eyes like smoked glass. He walked the banks, silent, carrying a thread of black salt in his left hand. He didn't speak for a whole day. When he finally did, he said, "There is something beneath your river, and it is not asleep." We asked how to stop it. He said we couldn't. Not entirely. But you can slow it down, he whispered. You can feed its name. That's when we gave it the title, Makeo Abut, the clay eater. Not to insult it, to acknowledge it. The Baba said names matter. That when you speak to a ghost, it listens. And if you name it, it sees you as real. Not prey. Not forgotten. Just part of the story. So that's what we did. We began whispering its name during prayers. Not loudly. Just under the breath. And on certain nights, we left bowls of fish at the banyan's root. Some vanished. Some remained. And on those nights, no one disappeared. The balance held. Not safety. Just silence. And child, let me tell you something. When the river is silent, that's when it's most dangerous. You'd think, wouldn't you, child, that once a ghost is named, once you honor it, once you give it what it wants, it would leave you be. But you'd be wrong. Ghosts, real ghosts, aren't like the ones in the stories. They don't rest because you remembered them. They rest when they've finished counting. And the clay eater? It hadn't finished. Not by a long shot. Now, after we started calling it by name, the disappearances slowed. That's true. The offerings helped for a while. Every Thursday, just before dusk, a bowl of raw fish would be placed near the banyan's roots. No one dared walk to the water. We'd float it out on a raft, nudged by a stick from a safe distance. The boatman would chant softly. The children would be kept inside, and the river would watch. We knew it watched, because sometimes the fish would be gone in minutes. No wind, no ripple, just gone. Some villagers swore they heard a gurgling sound, a satisfied hum, rising up from the bend. Those nights would pass quietly, but sometimes the fish were left untouched, and that's when we'd pray the hardest, because when the offering remained, something else was always taken. It didn't matter who, man or woman, young or old, one soul, gone by dawn, no blood, no scream, no body, just missing, like they'd been erased. One night, just after Eid, a boy named Halim went missing, barefoot, 10 years old, always following his father to the riverside. That evening, he snuck out after dinner, said he wanted to see if the offering had been accepted. They found his sandals on the bank, and the raft untouched. The fish bowl was still full, but the water, it was stirring, not with current, not with rain, but with breath. The Imam said it was punishment, that our faith had faltered, and ghosts preyed on weak hearts. Others said the spirit was growing bold, that it didn't want offerings anymore. It wanted rituals. So we tried. We tried everything. We recited verses in circles under the moon. We drew salt lines along the boat decks. We painted red dots on the children's foreheads to confuse the ghost's vision. But none of it worked, because you can't bargain with a river. You can only wait. That's when Lely Khatun made her mistake. She was a widow, lost her husband to fever the year before, had 2 daughters, sweet girls, quiet, never caused trouble. But after Halim disappeared, something shifted in her. She began seeing things. She said she could hear, chewing behind her when she prayed. She said her mirror blinked. And one night, she said the clay eater had spoken to her, that it offered a trade. "Let me take the child," it said, "and you may have your husband back." She told no one until it was too late. Her older daughter, Ruma, vanished that very night. And the next morning, Lely Khatun was smiling, cooking, humming her husband's favorite song. When we asked what happened, she said, "A fair bargain, 1 soul for 1 soul." Only her husband never returned. No body, no voice, just a shadow on the wall beside her bed. She said it would lie beside her at night, but never speak, just breathe, and sometimes chew. She left the village weeks later, eyes empty, laughter wrong. Her younger daughter went with her, but she never spoke again. To this day, no one knows where they went. Some say the river took all 3 of them. Others say the clay eater keeps them in the hollow under the banyan, where the water runs colder than ice. That was the final time we offered fish, because we realized the truth. You can't feed something that feeds on you, not without losing pieces of yourself in the process. So we stopped. Stopped bargaining. Stopped praying. We just listened and hoped the chewing didn't come near our door. You think ghosts stay where they're born. You think just because the clay eater lived in the Padma, it couldn't cross into our homes, our boats, our beds? That's where you're wrong, child. Ghosts like that, they expand. And it happens slowly, like everything evil does. It started with the wood, the boats. They changed. It didn't matter if they were new or old. Each boat began to carry marks. Faint at first, as if someone had walked through river mud and stepped into them. Footprints, but not human. Too long, too thin, and wrong. 3 toes, webbed, like they belonged to something not meant to walk on land. I saw them myself. Once, after a night of heavy fog, Bashir and I returned to the dock early. Our nets had come up shredded, not bitten, clawed. He stepped into his boat to clean it, and stopped. There they were, one after another, trailing from the bow to the back, leading to where the net basket sat. Only the basket was gone, vanished. He didn't speak for a week. Burned the boat 2 days later. Others tried the same, but the footprints came back, even on dry land. There were nights when we'd wait to find them on our porches, damp and glistening in the morning sun. No sound of entry, no sign of damage, just wet marks across the wood. Some family smeared ash across the floor before bed, hoping to catch a shape. They did. Not a full body, but half a heel, elongated, split down the middle, as if the ghost had forgotten how feet worked. It only got worse. People started hearing splashing at odd hours. Not from the river, no, from inside their homes. Once, a girl screamed so loud it shook the mosque roof. Her father found her curled beside the family water pitcher, clutching her hands and sobbing. She said she woke to drink and found fingers in the pot, pale, wet, floating just beneath the surface. They vanished when her scream hit the air. Another man swore his kitchen tap ran mud one morning. Thick, black, with tiny fish scales in it. He dug up his pipes. Found nothing. But the smell, he never got rid of it, even after he moved. By now, we understood. The clay eater was no longer just watching. It was walking. It had followed our offerings home, stepped through our prayers, slept in the spaces between our breaths. And worst of all, it had started learning, mimicking, adapting. Once, I saw a child by the river. She looked familiar, same shape, same size as a girl who had drowned 2 years before. She smiled at me, but the smile was too wide, and her feet dripped, even though the ground was dry. I didn't move, didn't speak, just nodded and walked back inside, because sometimes acknowledging something is enough to invite it in. That night, I placed salt by every door, but I still heard it. Not outside, not from the water, inside, soft, slow, wet footsteps, across the wood, then silence, and then the chewing, louder than ever before, like something had finally found what it was looking for, and it was enjoying every bite. I never meant to go back, not to that cursed curve in the river, not to the banyan that leaned like a secret over the water, not to the spot where the Padma first whispered my name. But ghosts have patience, child, and guilt has weight. I carried both longer than I thought I could. Years passed after the footprints, the vanishings, the offerings. The river seemed quiet again, but not healed, just tired, like a snake that had eaten its fill and now watched from the grass. We told stories in hushed tones. We taught children to never throw rocks into the water, never call out near the bend, never stare too long at their own reflections. The river was to be feared, respected, avoided, and we did until the boy from Dhaka came. A journalist, maybe, or a ghost hunter. I forget now. All I remember is his voice, loud, sharp, full of questions. He wore sunglasses at dusk and carried a camera like it was armor. He'd heard the stories, he said, wanted to write a piece, document the superstition, shine some light on the rural myths. He laughed when we warned him, but laughter doesn't scare ghosts. It invites them. That night, he took a boat, alone, said he wanted to film the banyan under moonlight. We begged him not to. We offered money, offered our own stories. But he went, and he never came back. His camera did. Washed up 3 days later, covered in silt, cracked, no footage, just one still image burned into the chip. A blurry figure by the tree. Not the boy. Too tall. Too thin. Too wet. That's when I knew. It wasn't done. The clay eater hadn't forgotten. And maybe it never would. So I returned. Not with prayers. Not with cameras. But with the only thing I had left. My voice. I rode just before dawn, when the sky was gray and the river still blinked off its dreams. The banyan greeted me like an old friend. Its roots had thickened, its trunk hollowed further. Something had nested inside. Not birds, not animals. Memory. I stepped out of the boat, placed both feet on the soft, cold clay, and I spoke. You remember me. The air stilled. The current paused. The fog thickened. And then he rose. Not fast. Not angry. Just inevitable. From the water. Half form. Half man. All hunger. His eyes were no longer searching. They were locked. On me. We stared at each other, like old rivals, or unfinished stories. He opened his mouth, not wide, not monstrous, just enough, and the sound returned, the chewing. But this time, it wasn't wet, it was dry, like someone chewing on old bones. And I understood. He wasn't hungry for flesh anymore. He wanted memory. He wanted his story, told, passed on, so he wouldn't fade, so he wouldn't be just another ripple in the river. I dropped to my knees, pressed my forehead to the mud, and said, I will carry your name. I will speak it. I will warn them. And the chewing stopped. The fog cleared. The boat rocked gently. I looked up. The banyan was alone again. The water still. The silence was full. And I knew I had been spared, not because I was brave, but because I had finally become what he wanted. A witness. A storyteller. Someone who would remember when the river forgets. So now you know, child. Everything. The disappearances. The banyan. The chewing. The eyes beneath the water. And the deal I made. You know the name. Makeo Abut. The clay eater. You know what it wants. And you know what it does when it's hungry. But what you may not understand, even now, is that this story, it's not just a story. It's a net. One I've cast around you, carefully, softly, word by word, not to trap you, but to protect you. Because once you hear the clay eater's tale, truly hear it, it becomes part of you. And you, in turn, become part of it. The river remembers you now. You've been seen. And the river never forgets its listeners. They call it a curse. But it's more than that. It's a cycle. Every generation, the Padma takes its due. Not out of evil, not even vengeance, but out of hunger. Stories are how it feeds. And silence. Silence is how it starves. That's why you must never let this tale die. You must pass it on. Tell it to someone who laughs, someone who doubts, and watch how quiet they grow when you speak of the chewing. Because one day, the river will rise again, and the ghost will reach for the surface, just as it always has. And on that day, you may find yourself on a boat, alone, with a lantern, and a net that feels too light. And when you hear the chewing, don't scream, don't run, just remember me, remember this voice, and say clearly, I've heard your story, I carry your name. Then row fast, and don't look back, because the Padma's last gift is forgetting, and if you forget to remember, you become the last catch.